Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Just when you think, it can't get any more far out than this, of course you should know better than to think that, but just when you kind of sort of get lulled into, this is as far as we go, and then it goes further, and then it gets more far out. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Anything but bored, I'll tell you. No, there's no such thing. No boredom. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's only two rules. Accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness. Reject everything unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. And that's it. Now how that plays out is unlimited paths and avenues and decisions and instances and situations, but that's the underlying. That's the rule. Accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness. Reject everything unfavorable. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chanting's always favorable. Hearing from authorized sources is always favorable. Can't go wrong, hearing and chanting. Watch the offenses though. Careful of those. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pracharine Nidisesa Sunyavadi Astacha Disatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Krishna. What is she doing? What? It's just someone trying to be Krishna conscious, trying to practice Krishna consciousness by hearing and chanting. That's all. So, it's Krishna bug. It's Srila Prabhupada. Haribo! Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda. Oh my God. Hare Krishna. So I'll read a little bit more. In chapter 15, Killing of Dhenukāsura. Hare Krishna. Govinda. Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna. So, Krishna is, they're in the forest, and it's a beautiful place. Oh, birds are chirping, and there's flowers, and Krishna's playing on his flute, and it's just a really wonderful place. And Krishna turns to his brother. He's there with Balaram and his cowherd friends. And he's talking to Balaram. He's glorifying Balaram as the original personality of Godhead, Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna Chaitanya. Okay, so he's talking to Balaram. He's glorifying Balaram. He says, it's quite natural for these Vrindavan inhabitants to thus receive a great personality like you. The herbs, creepers, and plants are also so fortunate to touch your lotus feet. And by your touching the twigs with your hands, these small plants are also made glorious. As for the hills and the rivers, they too are now glorious because you are glancing at them. Above all, the damsels of Raj, the gopis, attracted by your beauty, are the most glorious because you embrace them with your strong arms. Krishna has Rasa Lila with the gopis, and so does Balaram. Balaram has Rasa Lila also. In this way, both Krishna and Balaram began to enjoy the residence of Vrindavan to their full satisfaction, along with the cows and calves on the bank of the Yamuna. In some places, both Krishna and Balaram were accompanied by their friends. The boys were singing, imitating the humming sound of the drones, and accompanying Krishna and Balaram, who were garlanded with forest flowers. While walking, the boys sometimes imitated the quacking sound of the swans in the lake, or when they saw the peacocks dancing, they imitated them before Krishna. Krishna also moved his neck, imitating the dancing and making his friends laugh. The cows, taken care of by Krishna, had different names, and Krishna would call them with love. After hearing Krishna calling the cows would immediately respond by mooing, and the boys would enjoy this exchange to their heart's content. They would all imitate the sound vibrations made by the different kinds of birds, especially the chakoras, peacocks, and cuckoo, and budges. Sometimes, when they would see the weaker animals fleeing out of fear of the sounds of the tigers and lions, the boys, along with Krishna and Balaram, would imitate the animals and run away with them. When they felt some fatigue, they would sit down, and Balaram would put his head on the lap of one of the boys just to take rest. And Krishna would immediately come and begin massaging the legs of Balaram. And sometimes he would take a palm fan and fan the body of Balaram, causing a pleasing breeze to relieve him of his fatigue. Other boys would sometimes dance or sing while Balaram took rest, and sometimes they would wrestle among themselves or jump. When the boys were thus engaged, Krishna would immediately join them, and catching their hands, he would enjoy their company and laugh and praise their activities. When Krishna would feel tired and fatigued, he would sometimes take the shelter of the root of a big tree or the lap of a cowherd boy and lie down. When he would lie down with a boy or a root as his pillow, some of the boys would come and massage his legs, and some would fan his body with a fan made from leaves. Some of the more talented boys would sing in very sweet voices to please him. Thus, very soon his fatigue would go away. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whose legs are tended by the goddess of fortune, shared himself with the cowherd boys as one of them, expanding his internal potency to appear exactly like a village boy. But despite his appearing just like a village boy, there were occasions when he proved himself to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes men pose themselves as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and cheat innocent people, but they can only cheat. They cannot exhibit the potency of God. While Krishna was thus engaged in exhibiting his internal potency, along with the supermost fortunate friends, there occurred another chance for him to exhibit the superhuman powers of God. His most intimate friends, Sridham, Subal, and Stoka Krishna, began to address Krishna and Balaram with great love and affection thus. Dear Balaram, you are very powerful. Your arms are very strong. Dear Krishna, you are very expert in killing all kinds of disturbing demons. Will you kindly note that just near this place there's a big forest of the name Talavan. This forest is full of palm trees, and all the trees are filled with fruits. Some are falling down, and some of them are very ripe even in the trees. It is a very nice place. But because of a great demon, Dhenukāsura, it is very difficult to go there. No one can reach the trees to collect the fruits. Dear Krishna and Balaram, this demon is present there in the form of an ass, and he's surrounded by similar demon friends who assume the same shape. All of them are very strong, so it is very difficult to approach this place. Dear brothers, you are the only persons who can kill such demons. Other than you, no one can go there for fear of being killed. Not even animals go there, and no birds are sleeping there. They've all left. One can only appreciate the sweet aroma that is coming from that place. It appears that up until now, no one has tasted the sweet fruits there, either on the tree or on the ground. Dear Krishna, to tell you frankly, we are very attracted by this sweet aroma. Dear Balaram, let us all go there and enjoy these fruits. The aroma of the fruits is now spreading everywhere. Don't you smell it from here? When Balaram and Krishna were thus petitioned by their smiling, intimate friends, they were inclined to please them, and they began to proceed toward the forest, surrounded by all their friends. Immediately upon entering the Talavan, Balaram began to yank the trees with his arms, exhibiting the strength of an elephant. Because of this jerking, all the ripe fruits fell down on the ground. Upon hearing the sound of the falling fruits, the demon Dhenukāsura, who was living there in the form of an ass, began to approach with great force, shaking the whole field so that all the trees began to move, as if there were an earthquake. The demon appeared first before Balaram and began to kick his chest with his hind legs. At first, Balaram did not say anything, but the demon, with great anger, began to kick him again, more vehemently. This time, Balaram immediately caught hold of the legs of the ass with one hand and, wheeling him around, threw him into the treetops. While he was thus being wheeled around by Balaram, the demon lost his life. Balaram threw the demon into the biggest palm tree about, and the demon's body was so heavy that the palm tree fell upon other trees, and several trees fell down. It appeared as if a great hurricane had passed through the forest, and all the trees were falling down, one after another. This exhibition of extraordinary strength is not astonishing, because Balaram is the personality of Godhead known as Ananta Sheshanag, who was holding all the planets on his hoods of his millions of heads. The whole cosmic manifestation is maintained by him, exactly as two threads hold the weaving of a cloth. After the demon was thrown into the trees, all the friends and associates of Dhenukāsura immediately assembled and attacked Balaram and Krishna with great force. They were determined to retaliate and avenge the death of their friend. But Krishna and Balaram began to catch each of the asses by the hind legs and exactly in the same way wheel them around. Thus they killed all of them by throwing them into the palm trees. Because of the dead bodies of the asses, there was a panoramic scene. It appeared as if clouds of various colors were assembled in the trees. Hearing of this great incident, the demigods from the higher planets began to shower flowers on Krishna and Balaram and began to beat their drums and offer devotional prayers. A few days after the killing of Dhenukāsura, people began to come into the Talavan forest to collect the fruits, and animals began to return without fear to feed on the nice grasses grown there. Just by chanting or hearing these transcendental activities and pastimes of the brothers Krishna and Balaram, one can amass pious activities. When Krishna, Balaram, and their friends entered the village of Vrindavan, they played their flutes, and the boys praised their uncommon activities in the forest. Their faces were decorated with tilak and smeared with the dust raised by the cows, and Krishna's head was decorated with a peacock feather. Both he and Balaram played their flutes, and the young boys were joyous to see Krishna returning home. The young gopis were joyous to see Krishna return home. All the gopis in Vrindavan remained very morose on account of Krishna's absence. All day they were thinking of Krishna in the forest or of him herding cows in the pasture. When they saw Krishna returning, all their anxieties were immediately relieved. They began to look at his face the way drones hover over the honey of the lotus flower. When Krishna entered the village, the young gopis smiled and laughed. Krishna, while playing the flute, enjoyed the beautiful, smiling faces of the gopis. Then Krishna and Balaram were immediately received by their affectionate mothers, Yasoda and Rohini, and according to the time's demands, they began to fulfill the desires of their affectionate sons. Similarly, their mothers rendered service and bestowed benediction upon their transcendental sons. They very nicely took care of their children by bathing and dressing them. Krishna was dressed in bluish garments, and Balaram was dressed in yellowish garments. Usually they're depicted as Krishna dressed in yellow and Balaram dressed in blue, but here, no. And they were given all sorts of ornaments and flower garlands. Being relieved of the fatigue of their day's work in the pasturing ground, they looked refreshed and very beautiful. They were given palatable dishes by their mothers, and they pleasantly ate everything. After eating, they were seated nicely on clean bedding, and the mothers began to sing various songs of their activities. As soon as they sat down on the bedding, they very quickly fell fast asleep. In this way, Krishna and Balaram used to enjoy Vrindavan life as cowherd boys. Sometimes Krishna would go with his boyfriends and with Balaram, and sometimes he would go alone with his friends to the bank of the Yamuna and tend the cows. Gradually, the summer season arrived, and one day, while in the field, the boys and cows became very thirsty and began to drink water of the Yamuna. The river, however, was made poisonous by the venom of the great serpent known as Kaliya. Because the water was so poisonous, the boys and cows became visibly affected immediately after drinking. They suddenly fell down on the ground, apparently dead. Then Krishna, who is the life of all lives, simply cast his merciful glance over them, and all the boys and cows regained consciousness and began to look at one another with great astonishment. They could understand that by drinking the water of Yamuna, they had died, and that the merciful glance of Krishna restored their life. Thus, they appreciated the mystic power of Krishna, who is known as Yogeshwar, master of all mystic yogis. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 15th chapter of Krishna, killing of Dhenukāsura. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,